Hi, and welcome to episode 8 of West End Talks. We're here today with something a bit different. We're moving away from the West End, if you like, and we're going to TV, as you can see. We're here with Tim Wilson, Professor Tim Wilson, from this year's Circle. He was the fans winner of the Circle, and in my eyes should have been the overall winner, but hey-ho, that's a different story. So welcome, Tim. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for being so kind and generous with your with your winning assessment.
Yes, no, definitely. I had you down as the winner. Obviously, there was the fans winner, which was the public voted winner.
That was the one that mattered.
Yeah, I think
I'm terribly grateful to all the people who did vote. Actually,
I voted. I can assure you that. Don't worry.
You're very kind.
Yeah, there was 5 votes, and I gave you 4, and I did give Woody 1. I'll be honest.
I think one should always give Woody 1.
Yeah, I definitely gave Woody a vote.
I was going to say, Graham, I hope we're not going to go too far away from theatre, because for me, theatre really is my life. So,
don't worry, we'll not go too far away from theatre.
Thank you.
We'll not go too far away. Don't worry. We will touch quite considerable amount.
I feel I moved into a medium that I don't really understand, which is television. I understand the backside of television. I don't understand being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So I felt I was moving away from something I feel safe in. I feel much safer in the theatre, and I was, So I hope you don't go too far away from.
We'll not go too far.
Talks. That's where we want to be, I think.
We are West End Talks, so we'll not go too far away from the West End, but. We have had a lot of questions based around the Circle, because that's how most people in the country will know you for now. But you're also a professor. You're a professor. You're just a fantastic gentleman all round. So that's definite. So we'll get to know. But anyway, moving on. The first question tonight comes from Claire, and she wants to know, quite simply, did you watch the series 1 of the Circle?
Well, no. I didn't watch series 1 until I was approached and asked if I would be in series 2, and so I had I had less than a week to watch it, and I watched it in a sort of back-to-back in a one-day session. So I went early morning, right the way through, I think, until the following morning with my partner, and we watched every single minute. I don't believe I fell asleep. I am a dreadful snoozer in front of the television, but I don't believe I fell asleep. I certainly caught all of Freddie's bits. I think there might have been some heavy eye at some point. But I remember thinking this was something I could do. This was essentially kind. And it was, there was still enough of the social experiment for me to feel that I was doing something valuable. And I'd been teaching, and I'd been doing these ridiculous sort of acronym lessons, your PSHE or whatever it is, the thing which is basically sex education, but nobody wanted to call that. And they got me to do that. Of all nonsense, they get an ex-monk to do sex education. And I had no idea. If somebody presented me with a banana, I would turn around and eat it. I wouldn't know. I was hopeless, utterly hopeless. And then they were asking me questions in these PSHE things about online bullying and the safety of the internet. And I thought, well, look, here I am. I'm actually going to be doing a workshop in the safety of the internet. And when I came out, I immediately contacted some schools. And I said, look, let me come in and talk to your school about internet safety. And I did do a few talks. I would have done many more. I would still do many more, because I think, here I am the resource. There are no resources for this sort of thing. So, from a pedagogic point of view, I felt this was a very useful thing. And then I also thought, so from an acting point of view, I thought it'd be great fun to be a character for a duration. And I initially thought, I will be Mrs. May. And then I realised, there weren't any fields of corn, and she was ineffably boring in real life. I mean, how I thought for 1 minute that I would make her interesting beyond one day. And how could you spend a day or an evening with Mrs. May? It just is inconceivable to actually become Mrs. May for any period of time. And I went in I thought, I'm not going to survive more than about 2 weeks. So I had an academic, ding dong. What's it called? A conference in St. Petersburg lined up for the end of the month. I did have the foresight to tell the person who'd organised. There was the slimmest possibility I wouldn't be available, and I told him why, and he said, "Oh, it's a very bad idea, very bad idea. But I do understand." And he did. We have spoken since, so thank God he did understand. And he was sort of addicted to the program anyway. I mean, maybe he went to the conference and played me live, but it would have been my first big conference, and I was terribly excited about it. And I missed it because I could not believe that I was anything other than. Now, I've seen 2 little moments from Strictly Come Dancing. So and the wonderful fellow who then went on to do Top Hat. So 3 little moments from Strictly Come Dancing. One was Julian Clary saying to the catty one, "I live to dance," or whatever the line was. It was a great line. "My life is dance." Great line. The other one was the other one was Tom Thingamy, who was just superb, and
Tom Chambers,
and then John Sargent. And I thought that they put me on the circle as the John Sargent character, the old fart who people will like for a while and then he'll be tossed off. And I didn't expect to remain on there for any length of time. And I was constantly surprised. So, sorry, that's a long answer to a...
No, you're fine. That's absolutely fine. There's no long answers.
Claire, are you a Claire with an I, or are you not?
She's a Claire with an I. C-A-L-A-I-R-E.
How gorgeous.
Yes, so that's a great answer. So that obviously series 1 was won by a catfish, if you like. It was obviously Alex.
And I've met him, and he's an absolute angel. Alex is lovely.
Yeah, Alex Slashkey's girlfriend actually won. Slash Kate.
But the problem with catfishing, and there's a huge problem with it, it takes it out on you. It takes it out on your soul. When I was doing theatre years and years and years ago, because I had these sort of rather pronounced eyebrows, they all seem to have dropped out now. But age.
Unfortunately,
I've mellowed into Santa, I think, which is rather charming. But in the past, I was always cast as villain, and I thought this eats into your soul. It's because I've got a deep voice and I can do the sort of Christopher Lee rather well, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what happens with catfishing. If you're lying for a living, it eats into your soul, and I think it queers you up because you can't sustain that level of deceit if you are a nice person. And all the people I've met from the circle are quintessentially nice, and I think it hurts them to be involved in such deceit at such a level.
That makes sense, yeah.
So I think it's a tough call. So people have come to me in the last month or so and said, "What would I do to get on the show? What advice do you have?" And I've always been very positive about it. But I've felt sometimes I've been biting my tongue, and what I really want to say is, you will be persuaded to catfish. Just be careful, because you're taking your moral identity in your hand, and you will live to regret it, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And the only people who can do it well are well-trained actors who do it for a living, or spies. I mean, if you were James Bond, you could do it with aplomb. But I think James Bond is a character who likes people around all the time, and he would feel a bit sort of lost. And actors like people around all the time. And the problem is you're doing it with yourself. It's an onanistic fantasy, and it's not. These things shouldn't last for a month. That's the problem.
That's it. And there was quite a few catfishes this year. Obviously, there was, and not necessarily catfishes. What I found this year,
there was a big distinction that was being made between people who are genuine catfishes and people who have modified reality.
Yeah, obviously the first one out was Emile, and she was playing herself, but she was playing straight rather than gay. So
I got quite irritated with that, and she's a lovely person, and I think They took me off upstairs to a sort of confessional room and did a big confessional piece with me, which I think pretty well paid to my academic career in Russia. I mean, you can't be a gay person as a professor of theology in a major Russian university with a law which prohibits you promoting any form of homosexual identity to people under the age of 18. I basically, if I go back, it's a potential prison sentence. So I have had advice not to, and that makes it very difficult to go back, because you're sort of saying, oh, okay, I'm not taking that advice. So whatever happens to me, I'll call on the British consulate when something dreadful goes, and they would say, well, we did give you very clear advice.
Yeah.
So, you know, your life changes because of these things. I'm still a professor. And at some point when that law relaxes, I will go back, because the law is wrong and the law will change.
The law will change, yes.
Russia, like Britain and Clause 28, you know, it has a brain. It's a very, very clever country, and it will realize that this is a very silly law, but it's being pushed and promoted by a very nasty factor in the country. And I've met some of these people. I met one particularly vile man who looks like a toad. He's a man, he's related to Tolstoy, the writer. In fact, his name is Tolstoy. And he's vile. I mean, a while ago, he whipped up fury by saying that by saying that Jews were desecrating Orthodox churches. Complete rot. And now he's decided to get on the homophobic bandwagon. But you know, when that's exhausted, I'm sure he'll find something else. Maybe he'll just become a great adversary of Mr. Putin. You know, we live in hope that somebody's going to do some good. But anyway, sorry.
That's okay. Don't be sorry. No, this is your episode, Tim. This is your episode.
No. You set me going. You know, we've got to make time for all the questions. If you set me going, you'll have one person ask me a question. I'll chatter away for about.
Take the whole episode up for that one question. So the next question, Tim, comes from Tom.
Tom. That's like me with a different vowel, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, definitely. And he wants to know
immediately.
A question you probably been asked hundreds since you went on the show, and that's just, what made you want to go on the show?
I didn't. I was invited. Somebody telephoned me on a very, very wet, rainy day while I was teaching in Cambridge and said, would you like to go on this incredibly successful show? We're coming into our second series. And I thought they wanted me to do some artwork for them. And of course I said yes. And then I realized what they'd actually just said. And I thought, oh my God. And I thought, well, why do they want me? And I thought about it for a short while. And the time frame for making up my mind was incredibly tight. So I never applied. And people now tell me about all these tapes they have to make. I never made a tape. I had 3 or 4 interviews on Skype. I went up for what I was told were 2 interviews in London. They were in fact an audition and a callback. I came out of my audition and I said, well, I'll see you at 5 o'clock. And the woman on the desk looked flabbergasted. I mean, she obviously knew that the 5 o'clock one was a callback, but I hadn't been told that. I'd just been told I was expected back. And so I was sort of whisked through the whole thing. And when I did that callback, I remember sitting in a room with the senior producers, and I thought it was slightly tense. And they asked me what sort of things I was doing, and I remember I chatted away for a few minutes about teaching, and I said, well, really, I just regard education as an alternative version of musical theatre. And I said to everyone, getting to know you, getting to know all about you, come on. And we all joined in, and I had the entire production staff singing bits of The King and I. And I thought, that's the way to go, bang. And yeah, I walked out with a pretty certain knowledge that I was going to be in it. And then it would be, I think a week later, I was off either doing my VTs or I was actually off to actually do the show. It was incredibly fast.
It was fast.
And I just knew that I had a gap in my schedule anyway from the end of September to the middle of October. And then I had this conference. And I thought, I can go to this show. and I can sit on the show and I can write my conference speech. It's as simple as that. And of course, that never happened. And then when I came, I also knew there was a BBC show that I was supposed to do some work on. I was going to do the animation and little sort of fillers for a show for Lucy Worsley. I'd done the first 2 series for her. It was a thing called British History's Biggest Fibs and American History's Biggest Fibs, and I was going to do Royal History's Biggest Fibs. But in the end, when I came out, that was that's a rival. The BBC is a rival TV company, and they hadn't given me a contract. So because of the exigencies of the contract system, I really wasn't allowed to do it. So that was odd. But yeah, there was this hole in my schedule, and I thought the Circle would fill that hole.
It did. It filled a lot more than that hole, because you made it through the whole show.
I can say with my hand on my heart, I had a lovely time. I was looked after superlatively while I was on the show, and I loved the people who found me, and they personally looked after me while I was there, and I felt very cared for. And there was a time early on in the show when I thought, well, why do they think I'm going to have a relationship with all these people I can't see? My relationship is with the production, and I remember thinking while I was lying in bed, ooh, I see this camera moving. I know the identity or the person who is controlling that camera because I know the way they move. I never saw them, but cameras had an identity. Mm-hmm. And I was always right, by the way.
But always.
I always knew who was filming me, and if you place yourself into their hands, these people really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And in terms of the actual reality TV, they are spectacularly good. They've got a string of amazing shows in the that they produce in that production company, Studio Lambert. One of which is Gogglebox. I would never have thought that one could take such an unbelievably cheap format and turn it into thrilling entertainment.
And that's what they do. That's what Studio Lambert seem to do. Every show is kind of cheap way to do it. Like not necessarily cheap to make, but a cheap format. And
I'm sure it's cheaply made as well. But it actually, I think this is something which we're having my co-star here.
Hello.
He's here. Come on. Yeah, I know you're being talked about. Come on up. Oh, all right. Stay there for a minute. He put his tail in the cat food this morning, so he's not very happy. His tail got a bit.
A very clever thing to do.
Yeah, just very strange. Came up into the bed and his tail was moist. I thought it was something else for a moment. Look there. It's still dirty. Oh God, he's never quite learned how to clean his eyes. And the older cat is you used to clean him, and now she's very old and very frail, and she's stopped doing it. And I think he's given up.
He's given up. Just don't bother doing it.
He is such a boy. There we are. Anyway,
a lot of boys are like that.
I've lost all sense of where I was. Anyway, let's go on to the next question. Tom,
yes, let's
go on to Tom's question.
The what? Sorry. Yeah, I answered Tom's question. Yes, you did. So Patrick wants to know, when you were actually in the circle, was it as hard to work out who was real and who wasn't as we saw as the viewers?
No, to me it was as if it was written on a wall. It was unbelievably simple. It was just a matter of testing it.
You got a lot of them right. But that was what Emma Willis couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it. Just you were with some of them.
It wasn't that I just got them right. It was that I knew the identity of the people who they really were.
Yeah.
And particularly with Katie, who is an absolute hoot. And I knew who she was long before she revealed herself. I couldn't identify who the old lady was. What was her name? Joyce. I
Oh,
couldn't
Joyce,
work
the two.
was, but I knew that Joyce wasn't real, and I enjoyed Joyce enormously, as I also enjoyed Sammy enormously. And Sammy and I had this great bond. I knew she wasn't real, and I was pretty certain that Charlie wasn't real. But there was never the animosity which was supposed to be there. Wasn't there ever? And I think that was that was sort of a production thing, because you think, oh, that's what should be there if you've been lied to. I just expected to be lied to.
Yeah,
that was the game. And James and I had such a deep bond over various issues, some of which were broadcast, some of which were not. That, I mean, he could have turned out to be a whole squadron of soldiers, and I wouldn't have batted an eyelid, because I'd got to the heart of who he was or who they were. It didn't matter. And so we bonded in that way. And the same thing with Cy.
Oh, we all like Cy.
Well,
the public liked Cy.
Unfortunately, with Cy, I think production decided that they wanted to make him a bit boring and a sort of flirt, and they just didn't show you the extraordinary brain, the cleverness, the quick-wittedness of Cy, which I got. And Cy and I had conversation after conversation about combine harvesters, tractors, and the joys of spreading muck. And for some reason, none of this was broadcast. So when he got blocked by me, he was asked, who do you want to go and see? And he says, I want to go and see Tim. And they said, well, wouldn't you like to go and see this person? Wouldn't you like to go? No, I want to go and see Tim. And so reluctantly, I think, having not persuaded him to go and see somebody that they'd broadcast him talking to on a regular basis, he came to see me. And of course, production was stumped there because they had no sort of backup storyline to show that we'd had all these deep conversations. So what they wanted from Cy and myself was a sort of, why did you block me, you shit? Whereas in fact, really, all we wanted to do was talk about the content of shit, and the fact that this warm substance comes out of so many animals we love, and I was brought up on a farm, partly anyway, and I know Cy. And if COVID hadn't intervened, I would have been down on his farm helping him deliver calves. But COVID and that little jaunt was has to be saved for another day, because I'm a very good calf deliverer. I'm also extremely good at castrating little pigs. So I should have said that, should I? That may have to be excised from your.
Well, maybe take that bit out, yes.
But you've got to remember, I looked after goats on a mountainside. Mm-hmm. I understand animal husbandry. So Cy and I got on very well. But it wasn't, these things are structured and production knows what it wants to follow. And as long as you as a contestant are in sync with that, and you know what they're going to do, and it's not that difficult to work it out, then it goes along very nicely. But when you go off piste, that's footage that no one's ever going to see, and it might be fun, but it's throwaway, really. Yeah,
no, that's it. There's a lot, because obviously you were there the full time, so you there was a lot of footage we didn't get to see, obviously, a lot, and they couldn't physically put everything in because you would be watching it 24/7. You have to watch it all the time. You couldn't physically.
And we were often filming at very, very strange hours. We were put through some very, we were very hot, and we were often filming. We had no watches. We had no way of telling the date or anything. But somebody had some kitchen scales that apparently had the time and date on it. Before they were taken away, and they realized that we were often filming at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. God knows why, but maybe there was some element that they needed to be able to cut something in live if necessary.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Because there was times that it was live. Obviously, every Friday it was live with Emma in the studio.
Graham, I've never seen the show.
You've never watched it back?
No, I've only seen series 1, and I saw the first few episodes of series 2. And you can tell when I start to get bored with something, because I start drawing heavily, and I started drawing heavily, and I could barely keep my eyes open, and I didn't like what I saw. I just remembered what it was like, and I'd already lived the show. Do you remember that wonderful scene? Do you remember a wonderful scene in the film Hans Christian Andersen with Danny Kaye? And he gets locked in the costume room.
Yes.
By the aggressive husband, and the ballerina who can barely manage a word in English. She's oh, you know the shoes. I want to be able to feel as if I'm dancing on a hair. You understand, don't you? Yes, I think I understand. Oh, you do understand. And he sort of falls in love with her, and he's sort of messing around. He's being very very stalky, actually, really, and he's locked in the cupboard. And the show starts, and he says, I don't need to be there, because I can see it all in my mind. And then we see it all in glorious Technicolor, in MGM wonder, with amazing camera moves. And that's what the circle was like for me. I could see it all.
Yeah, you've lived it through it all, and like everything that we saw and more. You lived through.
I just saw these people. I saw them three-dimensionally. So when I actually saw them in real life, it was a sort of confirmation of who they were already. So James was a revelation as James, because I didn't know what he looked like.
You just knew it wasn't Sammy.
I just knew it wasn't Sammy. Every time I tried drawing Sammy, what came out was a sort of icon. And you know, the first time I saw Sammy and Charlie, I thought, well, that's an image that's worked for 2,000 years, mother and child. So I mean, that must be false. That must be fake. And other contestants had said to me since, they've said, well, we just didn't believe that was fake. We didn't believe anybody would dare to pretend to be a single mother. I thought, well, you know, why not? It's worked. It's worked.
Yeah.
History so much. It's one of the great icons of history. Why would you not seize on one of the great icons of history? Not that I intend to parade as Adam from the Sistine Chapel, but
oh, that's true.
Hey, there we are. Anyway, next question.
So, as he says, you struck up a surprising but fantastic friendship with, at that point, someone you only knew by name, which was Woody.
Yeah.
It was great to watch. It genuinely was great to watch your friendship blossom. And I think that's what helped Woody get to the final.
Oh,
you were a long shot. You were a guaranteed almost. As fans, we're talking as fans here. We watched it, and you were guaranteed to get to the final. But Woody was kind of, obviously, he was kind of come and go a bit. It was.
I had no idea the advantage over me there, of course.
Yeah, but I think obviously you helped him get to the final. I'm not saying it's the only reason he got to the final, but you helped him. What made you become friends with Woody? What kind of struck up that friendship?
It was Richard.
Richard.
I was in such despair over the attack Richard made on me. You only saw a small amount of it, but he had me in tears.
Yeah.
And I was crying remorselessly for about or relentlessly, not remorselessly. I wasn't remorseful. I was relentless. I was in tears for about 6 hours or so, and I had to do the ratings during that time. And so if you listen to the ratings at that point, I sound a bit breathy, I think. This has been described to me. I'm not breathy. They managed to find just a few moments when I gave the ratings when I wasn't literally crying at that moment. But I was in tears, and Richard had really hurt me. And one of a part of it was I was very worried about my old cat, and the picture that I had as my profile picture was me with the old cat, Hannum, across my shoulders, and I thought she wouldn't survive the series, and I thought I would get out and I'd find that she died. And he was nasty about the old cat, and so he didn't seem to know, obviously, that it was that I had the younger cat with me, I just felt the whole thing, that it was just layers of nastiness, and I don't like that sort of nastiness. I also think if you want to play, you have exactly the same problem when you come to one of the great operas, Cosa fan tutte, and there the two main characters play a joke on their girlfriends, and the joke is a Wiener Spaß, a sort of practical joke, but I mean it's got this sort of technical name, and that's what it was. It was an elaborate practical joke. But as at the end of Cosa fan tutte, you cannot imagine that those boys are going to get back together with the girls.
Yeah,
it is inconceivable. The play needs to be tidy, and so you have to find a way of doing it. I've done a production of it. I found a way, but it's a theatrical way, and I felt. I was very concerned that I didn't actually have an apology. Weeks before, it was months before, at the NTA, I met Richard and the real Judy, and they gave me a hug, and it was much needed, but long overdue. And I just think people think, oh, that's a joke, or that's okay, mate. It's not okay. It hurts. And Woody came to my aid. Woody was there for me.
Yeah, because Woody
and
obviously.
I remember production was there for me. Well, production realised I was in a mess, and they suggested I should go up to the tub and have a bathe, and I said, well, I don't have any bathing trunks, and I have no intention of doing that sort of thing. And when an hour or so later, an Edwardian bathing suit had appeared on my door with a straw hat, and I thought, I can see where this is going. And I threw myself into it with aplomb. And I'm so pleased I did, because while I was up there, they put me in touch with Woody, and I think I had a chat with Brooke as well, and Georgina, and they were all so supportive, but Woody particularly was just, and he reached out, and I realized, this is a kindred spirit. He understands the deeper problems that this level of deceit and this level of practical joke involve. And I drew a picture of the Judy on the show, which was fairly accurate. And in the course of those few hours, I doctored the picture, and she had horns, and she was originally she was on she was on a gondola in Venice, and I turned the gondola into a cat, and I had the little man in red from Don't Look Now hovering around on one of the bridges. I mean, it was just an evil picture by the time I finished, and I felt that I'd sort of nurtured what I thought in the circle. That up to that point, I felt I sort of nurtured a Garden of Eden, a lovely circle, a game of reciprocity, and I felt that Judy had brought in evil into my garden, and I felt that not only was she threatening me, but I felt that she'd turned me. I felt that she'd made me vicious and evil and nasty and vengeful and spiteful, and I didn't like that in me.
No, I agree. But obviously Richard was kind of flung in there as a kind of an extra boy. He was never going to win it. Judy was never ever going to win the show. You didn't know that at this point. Obviously, you didn't know who actually, like, what was Judy. I know you knew Judy wasn't Judy, but was there ever a feeling that that was a celebrity? Was that ever a thing until that was revealed? Or was it just another person?
I thought was it Judy or was it somebody else? Somebody I thought might have been Stephen Fry.
I do remember you thinking that. Yes, it wasn't Judy. It was somebody else. Yeah.
I don't remember voicing that, but I do remember thinking that. And I also felt. I remember going through. I remember thinking, Judy. Why would you call yourself Judy? It's not a very common name. And then I thought, my Judy is a sort of gay expression for my best friend. I thought, could this person be a gay man? And this person wasn't remotely interested in me, so I thought, absolutely not. I mean, this person. Whereas I know that Paddy didn't like me when he came in, but the gay bond was almost immediate. So I knew Judy was not a gay man. I had no idea who she was, but I knew that I was frightened of her. I was personally frightened of her, and I was frightened what she was doing to the circle, not just to me. And I was so relieved to speak to Woody and find that he had doubts about her as well. But mostly it wasn't about her; it was about just the support he gave me, and I will never forget that. I felt an alliance, and I was never going to lose that after that point. I was determined that I would help him after that. And
was there any point?
Win.
Sorry.
I wanted to see him win. I knew I couldn't win, but I really from that point on, I decided I wanted to stay in the show as long as I could, and be at the final table to see him win. Or Ella. It didn't really matter to me by the time Ella came in. I liked her as well.
Oh, Ella was fantastic.
Just thought either Ella or Woody would win, and I think they would have done if there hadn't been this other alliance, and I had no sense of that at all.
There was so there's a few dirty alliances throughout the circle. A few great alliances like these ones, like you, Woody and Ellie.
But you see, I was one of the reasons I will always support James. Well, there's two reasons. Number one, I would imagine he makes great television, and
it makes great television. Yes.
Adversarial thing makes great television. And in order, it's very nice to be in a sort of cowboy film. In order to be the sheriff, you need a villain, and I think at one point I was definitely being pitched as the sheriff. And James was definitely being pitched as the villain, riding in and creating havoc.
He definitely did that.
We'd already established this great relationship anyway. But the other reason why I'm so supportive of James is he's got the mind of God. I mean, if I wanted to go up against somebody who was clever, James is such a good choice. I mean, it was playing a really good game of chess. And generally when I play a game of chess, I can work out somebody else's moves a few moves ahead, and I start to giggle. And so that's a complete giveaway. But in this case, of course, I couldn't be seen giggling. And I was just heartbroken when we got out and I heard that he'd received death threats. Which, this is just wrong. It's just a game.
Oh, it's wrong. Yeah, it's just a game. I didn't like him. Like, I didn't like James as the way the editing was done. Obviously, James is a lovely man, I'm sure.
You just haven't met him, and I would say James. He does acting. He's just a great all-rounder. I would trust James. Absolutely.
Oh, he's probably lovely, but the way it was edited, he was the villain, if you like, because he turned on you, he turned on Woody, and I'm like, no, don't you dare. But for me, it was only pantomime. It was like a pantomime villain.
Absolutely, and you need somebody to hiss at. And
yes.
And I know what that role is like, because when I was doing theatre years and years ago, that was the role I always played. I was always the villain. And in fact, I remember doing Greek tragedy on one occasion. I remember getting hissed from the audience. I thought that's a first. I can't even. And I remember doing Greek tragedy in Greek, and I remember a similar sort of response. But I've always been the villain, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to play. I want to play the nice parts, the sort of cuddly uncles and the. I wouldn't mind doing an occasional hero, but at my age, those are few and far between. Yeah,
there's not many older characters, but there might be. We'll get into musical theatre just in a bit. But a bit more about the circle, I've got to say. So what made you, and when did you decide that Woody was real?
Oh, from the very beginning. I drew everybody.
You did?
And I had no difficulty drawing Woody, so I knew he was real. I had no difficulty drawing Jan, so I knew she was real. I had no difficulty with Georgina. Brooke, I had difficulty with. I thought Brooke was a man for a while.
You did, yeah. A few people thought Brooke was a man because when she found that out, she was a bit like, "Excuse me."
But that's because we weren't. We were. I was never allowed to talk to Brooke on her own.
Yeah.
So production wanted to guide me in that direction. It wanted that fun, and I only got little images of Brooke. I remember baking her a birthday cake, but I like Brooke. I think Brooke's great. Yeah. So I knew Woody was real from the very beginning. I thought possibly he was a little older than he was, and I thought that right the way through to the end. I thought possibly he'd already been to university and had already done Bristol. So his great revelation was just that he was as young as he was.
And obviously who his mum and dad were.
That went straight over my head, I'm afraid. At the table, he announced who his mum and dad were, and Georgina said, "Do you know who they are?" I said, "No." And I felt so ashamed. I felt sort of, oh God, Woody, you just you must think I'm useless. Then I thought, well, I think I do. Isn't your mother the daughter of and then I got confused with Michael Ball of all people.
No, it's
but you see, his grandfather was on television just after my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So although I knew of his of this amazing sort of mathematics whiz, he wasn't part of my childhood. He was part of my brother's childhood, and I sort of knew of him. And I think, but to grow up with that pedigree, and I've since met the family, and I just think I think Zoe and Norman, they're just wonderful. They're such good parents, and Woody is an absolute testimony to the right way to do it. And
well, I'll let you into a secret. While you were on the show, it's not a secret because it was done in public, but while you were in the show, I went to Strictly Come Dancing It Takes Two quite a lot, and waited for the celebrities to come out and things. And obviously Zoe presents that. She was doing a bit with Rylan obviously this year, but that's irrelevant. She presented it, and on the day
I met Rylan as well, so
yeah, he's hilarious. But on the day of the final, she presented the show at London, and I said, "Oh, you're going to the final?" And she went, "Oh, I can't make it." And then I goes home and watches the final, and then she's there in the I'm like, she must have got a helicopter up. She must have helicoptered her up to the final. But throughout the Sri race, obviously meeting her every week, we talked about it because I went to get a selfie the first time. That's was in the Circle app. I had obviously the Circle app on my phone. It buzzed, and she went, "Do you watch the Circle?" I says, "Love the show. I'm addicted to it." "My son's in the Circle." I went, I know your son's in the Circle.
So what is your link with Strictly Come Dancing?
Oh, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Strictly.
How brilliant! I've yet to really discover Strictly. So
you would be a fantastic contestant on it.
I would love to do it.
Why?
I would love to. I remember going to see a show that Rylan was in just before Christmas, and
Nativity.
Bumping into lots of people from Dancing on Ice, and they were suggesting I ought to go on that, and I thought, no, I can't ice skate. And I said, "No, we'd teach you." And I said, "No, I'd scream excellent TV."
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
And I thought, okay, well, I'd be game for that. But I think of the two, I'd prefer Strictly. But and I remember going on Zoe's program a few mornings after we came out of the show with Woody.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this.
This is where that spot was taken.
And I just thought, what a professional. How I happen to know that she was very nervous, and so was Woody, about being on the show together. And I felt that it was sort of my job to sort of, cement all this together and make sure everything went smoothly. But I didn't need to make any effort because she is a consummate professional, and it is just so wonderful to be next to these people. And Emma in the final again.
Emma Ellis is a fantastic presenter.
She was also, I realised, quite nervous during the final, but again, just that professionalism comes through, and you just think these are the people to learn from. This is the art, and it's hard work, and it's not primarily about talent. It's about hard work, and these people are talented too, but they put in the work. You know.
That's definite. Not a bit. What I was saying now when she was talking about the circle, and she obviously said my son was in it, and I said, "Oh, he's fantastic." This is maybe week 1, so we'd only seen a couple of nights of it.
Yeah.
So we didn't really know a lot about you at that point. We were starting to get to know you, and she went, "I want Tim to win." I'm like, "Are you not champion Woody?" She's like, "I'm champion Woody. I just love Tim." She said, "I think he's absolutely fantastic." And this is before you to strike the friendship up. So there wasn't really that on camera anyway. I don't know how it worked on TV, but on camera, there certainly on TV, sorry, there certainly wasn't that friendship at that point.
No, there wasn't.
When we were talking, and I'm like, "Really? Oh, I want Tim to win." So she was champion you to win. Don't tell Woody that. Okay, happy.
My lips, Graham, are absolutely see.
Yes, don't tell him that.
Nobody outside this room will know of that.
Whoever's listening to this video.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rebecca wants to know, did you think you were as Rebecca. She asks, did you think you were as popular with the viewers as you were?
No, nor did I think I was popular with the people playing in the circle. I was always surprised. I just thought, why would anybody find this old fart so popular? And I gave it my all. And I threw myself into everything. But I was always surprised that I was popular. I was always surprised. I was delighted and very grateful, but always surprised. I never took any of it for granted.
A few people actually thought, like in the circle, thought you were a catfish for quite a while. Like a few of them,
yeah,
it certainly came across that into camera anyway on TV.
I've had a very dynamic life, and I've squeezed a lot of things in, and I've always had difficulty when you're in one of these rather simplistic interviews and somebody says, "So, what do you do for a living?" You think, well, I don't really live. I just do. I am. I do anything that happens to come to. I think of myself as an artistic whore. If something needs doing, I just do it. It doesn't matter what it is. Oh, I've got to milk a goat. That will be a story one day. So yeah.
What a brilliant way to live life.
Well, it's necessary. I don't have 2 pennies to rub together, and I'm not going to let that get me down. Fantastic
way of living.
And also, I equally, when I see something which I don't approve of, I'm going to call it out. And that's got me into endless trouble. I can't begin to tell you. I mean, literally, I've taken an entire country to court because I didn't approve of the way they behaved, and I won. But that's a country I love deeply, and but I will not. I just think we have a responsibility. So it's this idea of responsibility on the one hand and opportunity on the other. These two things come together. It possibly got something to do with the way I was brought up in this sort of idea of being a monk and stuff, and the idea of providence. And
So the next question comes from Lydia, and she asks, were you surprised at the reaction of the show? So obviously we had season 1, so there was a fan base already, but we kind of fairly took off in season 2. Like season 2 was far bigger.
I didn't have Instagram before I went on the show, and I was persuaded on the day I went in to set up an Instagram account, which then someone else looked after for me very brilliantly. And I went up from 1 Instagram follower on the day I went into the show to 100K on the day I came out. And it's sort of hovered around that area ever since. So obviously I've done bugger all since then. But But you know, we live in hope. But I mean that I think is the measure of the success of the show. It's not me, it's the show. The show was extraordinary and had a most extraordinary following. I don't know what it sort of hit. It hit a moment in time, and it was right for the period. I mean, you know, it was immediately followed by COVID, so it was the right show for the time, wasn't it? Really,
it was. Yes, it definitely was.
Yeah. I was very fortunate, and I'm very grateful to have been on it.
And you've actually you're one of the few people. Yeah. So what I was saying. Yeah. So you obviously were talking about COVID, and I was saying to Katie, who's coming up in the next few episodes.
Yeah.
We've got her and her son, actually the real Jay, coming on soon as well. And I was saying to her that you are the only few people in the world that have had proper training in lockdown.
Absolutely.
Because you were in complete lockdown for this. And
absolutely, yeah. So you know, but lockdown itself, you don't want to make light of it because it was really difficult.
Definitely difficult, yes.
For other people. I mean, for me, I just sit in front of my computer and do my animation and work. And in one sense, I'm very content. My partner was stuck in Dubai during the beginning of lockdown, so that was tough. I mean, there were lots of issues going on, but I think people found it very, very difficult. And I find the mask wearing difficult because you know, masks aren't made for people with beards and glasses.
No.
And it just doesn't work. So I just feel we're in this for quite a long run, and I've got bits of I've got my own personal projects lined up for another 6 months or so, and certainly I'm prepared for that.
Yeah, no, that's definite. So
if I could get paid for some of that, I would like it. That would make me a little happier. My partner would be overjoyed.
Sure, yes, I'm sure it would be. So Thomas wants to know: is the Paddy and Tim travel show still in planning?
I don't think it was ever serious. I don't think that was ever going to happen. Let's. The travel show with Paddy, I don't think that was a very realistic idea in the first place, but I would love to go and see Ireland with Paddy, and when COVID is all out of the way. You know, I have a background in Ireland. My birth mother comes from Dublin. I'd love to see Clontarf, and who better to show me that than Paddy? And I'm sure there are places in Dublin and further afield around Ireland that we could explore together. I think the idea in the end of a show going around Ireland together would be a good one, but it's never been developed, and I don't think it was seriously considered.
Here's hoping something comes out of it. I think something with you and Woody. I think you and Woody need to do something. Personally speaking, obviously there's no rumours to that at all.
I'd love to do something with Woody. I know that he would be interested in doing something with me. We're meeting, I hope, next week, and I'm going down to Brighton to see him, I think. I hope we'll find time to do something. But I know he's going to university, and that's more important in a way. Woody will be around for a while.
Yes.
It's okay. It's okay.
I need to meet him. I need to get him on this or something.
He's a good boy, and he knows how to he knows how to think of, he knows how to plan, and he knows how to listen, and he knows how to center himself in the moment. I think he's got everything that makes a good performer.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, so definitely. Mikey, or Mickey, I don't know how you put it, it's either Mikey or Mickey, Mikey, wants to know, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently, if anything?
I don't think I would do it again unless somebody paid me a lot of money.
Unless you were guaranteed that 100,000 at the end.
Oh, I'm not interested in winning. I wasn't interested in winning in the first place. I'm not going to change that. But I just think if I'm going to be locked up somewhere, somebody's going to make it worth my while a second time round.
I can understand that. I can do.
it was uncomfortable being so hot and having lights on me all the time and cameras on me all the time, and you know, it's yeah, somebody would have to pay me, and there would have to be an end game. I think I would have to know what I was doing it for. But no, and I have no desire at all to do Big Brother or any of these other reality TV shows. I've looked at reality TV now. I've got an interest in it. I'd like to write something about it. I think it's cheap television. It hits the mood of the time. I mean, I think it's very clever television. I think it's potentially very exploitative television, and I think, you know, there just aren't enough safeguards around the whole industry to make sure it's safe. And we are constantly hearing of problems. I think the production company that did The Circle is probably the best in the business. Yeah, I wouldn't do it again.
No, that's very true.
I know there is talk of me doing something in Circle 3. I mean, if I was to do something in Circle 3, I hope it would be significant, but it wouldn't be as a contestant.
You wouldn't go back in. You wouldn't do it again. I
wouldn't do what Richard did to start with, because I disapproved of what Richard did.
Yeah.
So that rules that out. I think I wouldn't mind doing the sort of thing that Joyce did. So if I were to go in with someone like Freddie, I think we'd have a whale of a time creating a character.
Oh, I think you and Freddie would be hilarious together.
That might be entertaining, but we would do it rather than to cause a problem. We would do it as a genuine contestant. That would be a possibility. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind just going in and seeing how people are.
So that's some. You wouldn't do it again. Obviously, you wouldn't choose to do it again. But there's other ways you could do other things.
Yes, as I said, Graham, I am an artistic whore. So if somebody paid me enough, I'd do it.
You would do it. I can understand that, yes. And there's obviously that there is now that it's been revealed that there's going to be a celebrity one. Obviously, how that works, we don't know yet. We don't know any more details.
I can't imagine how a celebrity one would work. Would you pretend to be another celebrity, or if I were it, would I pretend that I was somebody really important? I just would somebody pretend to be me? That would be very entertaining. I don't know.
I don't know how it's going to work. Whether it's going to be celebrities impersonating other celebrities, or celebrities impersonating normal people, or I don't know how it's going to work.
I haven't been asked to be on that. I don't see myself as a celebrity anyway, and I think it's unlikely. And I would be very, very cautious about doing it again.
Yeah, no. I think, as I said earlier, I think we should get you into something like Strictly. We'll get you into something like that. That would be more interesting now.
I think Strictly, or I mean, I did go up and talk to a lady called Steph. And we were going to do something, and then COVID broke out. I'm afraid I didn't know who she was either. But I did do some homework, and she was an interesting lady. So I'd be quite happy doing a little bit of presenting. I'd be happy doing some drama or something. I'd be happy doing. I'm very comfortable on television. I'm very comfortable with the camera. I'm very comfortable with performance.
We'll get a hashtag going. Hashtag get Tim on TV or something. We'll get that.
Somebody did suggest I ought to try Doctor Who. I'd quite like to try Doctor Who.
Oh, I could see you in a Doctor. Yeah, I could see you as Doctor Who. You could be Jodie's replacement.
going into my little shed.
Hello, is that? Wait a minute, where's my phone? Hello, is that Jodie Prenger? No, Salem again. Oh, is that Jodie? Yes. Get Tim as your replacement. Thank you. There we go. I've sorted that. Go on, Jodie.
Could you imagine the transformation? You know. Oh, hello.
Oh, I could definitely see you as Doctor Who without a doubt.
Doctor Who has been one of those things which has sort of dogged my life. And I remember an old family friend who was a Silurian in 1970, And I remember I went off to school and was told to look out for Nigel, the tallest Silurian among the monsters. So that was the point at which I knew they weren't real. And it still had its allure. And I think that was those were the early days of John Pertwee. In fact, it may even have been John Pertwee's opening season. Opening season.
God, that's just a few years ago then.
Yeah, 1970 or 1969. 1970
yeah. Not just yesterday. Anyway, we'll move on slightly to our name, and we'll move to the West End and musicals. Because obviously you said earlier you are a big fan of musicals. You have your favourites and your non-favourites and etc. But Jamie actually asked the question: have you seen any musicals live? And if so, what has been your favourite?
Oh, I've seen so many. Obviously, what I want to talk about is something slightly obscure. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, great show. Great show. But you know, I would have to go back to tell you. I would have to go back in time a little bit to tell you the sort of things. What's it? She Loves Me at the Savoy years and years ago. But there was a better version of it done with Gemma Craven on television, which I think has found its way onto the internet, so you can find that. That's really brilliant. The Baker's Wife, which was in the same theatre as Into the Woods, with Mark Tinkler and Dickie Dempsey, and I can't remember the lady now. She now turns up as Miss Marple. Mackenzie, just only just come out of Follies, superb show, and I liked the rewrite. I saw the Follies recently at the National. Although I think Imelda Staunton, superb, loved her in the thing that Angela Lansbury did in '73 or so. What's that? Yeah. Anyway, loved her in that, in the Savoy again. But I think I prefer the rewrite from the late '90s, late '90s.
I only remember the National version, where Imelda Staunton. I only saw that version. I've never seen any other version.
It's just a good show.
Yeah, it's a fantastic show. But you named some real classics there, like The Baker's Wife.
Yeah.
Follies obviously is a classic.
And I did I designed the London revival of Assassins. So and I was a sort of uncredited advisor on another Sondheim show. And I'm a great Sondheim fan. I've not named as many Sondheim shows as I would like to, but I could name them all really, and I just say, you just line them up, and I will spend the next week just going to one after the other. The wonder about a musical is even when you've got something quite dark, it works if there's a lightness of touch, if there's a little sort of twinkle in the eye as you're dying. And that even works in Les Miserables. Hate the new version of Les Miserables.
Very strong opinion there, Tim.
What?
That's a very strong opinion there. I like that.
And you know, I have great fondness for The Return of Martin Guerre, which was originally translated by a great friend of mine, Ed Hardy. And his sister, and I had great hopes for Ed Hardy. I thought he would be the next British Sondheim, we're looking for that. I love the new songs in the stage show of Mary Poppins. When I came out of the circle, they asked me, what 3 things would you like to do? None of them happened, of course. And I said, I would like to do panto. I would like to know that I can stand in front of an audience still and respond live. I would like to go to the premiere of Mary Poppins, if we're talking premieres, and I would like to write a book. And sadly, none of those happened. The premiere of Mary Poppins coincided with a party that I had to go to for Channel 4, which oddly was being produced by an old school, an old student of mine. So that was entertaining. I mean, they're all over the place. I went into the Circle. I came out of the Circle. I went into the Circle offices the week after in London, and a lad came in, and he produces Four in a Bed.
All right, yeah.
And he said that he heard my voice on the television. Said, that man taught me religious studies. Came rushing in to Stephen Lambert and said, I know him. And they were all sort of goggle-eyed as opposed to goggle-box. And so when I got off the Circle, you know, he came down the stairs and I got a big hug from him. I haven't seen him since I was teaching him. And the fellow who devised the Circle, it turned out that he shared a house with a man who was probably the single best conductor ever that I worked with, a man called Nick Jenkins. So we were constantly in his house. So I must have met Tim Harker, but neither he remembers it nor do I. But not only would we have met, because we had all our meetings in the kitchen, and Tim Harkett and the other people who lived in the house must have been sort of weaving their way around us. But Tim also read classics, and I'm a sucker for anybody who does Latin and Greek, so I would have taken him to one side and said, "Ooh, how exciting," and been a bit patronising about it. You know, I did theology; it's a completely useless subject, but it gave me access to all these languages, and that joy of having languages that nobody speaks has never really left me.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. So, last question from fans.
Oh no!
Yes, we're at that stage already. The last question from fans, not the last question of the night, but the last question from fans, comes from Anthony.
Yes.
On Twitter. You can interact a bit with Anthony on Twitter. And he asked, he thinks you would make a great Razor Wolf or Topple in Fiddler on the Roof, personally speaking. But he asked, if there was a show that you would be in, what West End show would it be and who would you play?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'd love to do Topple, but the problem with Topple is the second half. If you could sort out the second half, I would do it. Because you've got all the big tunes in the first half, and then in the second half you've got Anna Tefka, and that's it, really. And you've got giving away the daughters, and it's sort of, oh, get rid of the other daughter. Oh, just go, get on that train, get into Siberia. Who cares? Let's have something. It's a little bit sort of repetitive, and I think the problem really with Fiddler on the Roof is that Topple so defined so Topple is Chaim Topple is the man who played the part. So what's the part we're thinking of? What's the name of the character? It's not Topple. It's Tevye. So because Topple was so young when he played Tevye, I think he was playing with more gravity. And I saw a production a while ago in Israel, which was so much more lively because the part of Tevye was played by an older man who was playing young. And suddenly that second half had a lot more dynamic. It was in a language I don't really speak, so, you know, but yeah, you know, we live and learn. But so that's one. Laser Wolf, not Razor Wolf. Laser Wolf. Yeah, I wouldn't mind playing that part at all. But it is like stepping back into villains a little bit. But I'd just like to be on stage. It'd be really nice. You know, I'd play Caractacus' grandfather in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or something. That would be great fun.
I think you'd be good at that.
P-O-S-H. But there is a part I'd love to play, which is one of the great Candron Ebb shows. It's never been done in the UK, which is Zorba.
I know of it.
I think I might be a bit old for the main part now, but you know, at least I know Greek, and
You never know.
I understand the characters. I understand. I taught myself modern Greek partly by reading Nikos Kazantzakis books, so you know, it's in my soul. So does that answer, Anthony?
Yes, that answers. Yeah, that definitely answers the question. Definitely.
I don't want to sound too grand about that, because really, you know, I remember when I was little and I was shown I had a little booklet which was given to me by an old lady who had a neighbouring farm, and on the back page it was a booklet about how the back of the theatre works, and I just thought it was wonderful, and I lost it in a flood in the in about just so around about 2004 when we were moving from Greece, and it was a very tatty little book. And on the back page, there was a picture of a little boy who was called the call boy, and he ran from dressing room to dressing room to say, 5 minutes, sir. And I thought, I would do that. I would do that. And I'd be happy just to be involved. But if there were a chance, I would, I'd learn how to tap dance. I'd learn how to do whatever was necessary to do the part. I'd love to play something like Man of La Mancha, but I just don't think I've got the vocal equipment now, and I haven't been properly trained. That is
a big vocal part.
It's a really difficult part.
I saw it last year with Kelsey Grammer, and it was a big vocal part.
Kelsey Grammer did it superbly, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, the show itself was a bit creaky in places, but it's a creaky show. This is the problem.
It's a very strange show.
Yeah.
It's like 3 shows in one.
Yeah, it's like Pippin, which again is another show which hasn't been done over here. I think they took New York by storm, and when they came over here, we thought, oh well, we've seen all this, and because there's so much of these shows are sort of anchored in variety, and that is pantomime. So although variety has died, pantomime continues year after year, and we hope it's going to continue this year. You know, there's all this talk about, can we get the government to let us back into the theatre so we can do pantomime? That's the wrong way to look at it. I think we should be saying, you know, theatre people, we need to start a publicity drive and say, panto this year will be at Easter. Get ready for your Easter panto, and just put everything on hold and get ready for we do not want a panto season being readied simply to be flattened out by another lockdown. We need to tighten our belts and prepare for a really big panto season at Easter, I think. That's
that's a good idea. That's a good proposal, and definitely. So moving on. We'll certainly put that out there. We'll make that snippet and we'll send it to all the.
I would play any part. I would even do an Abanazza if somebody did that. I would go back to the villain just if somebody could rescue Panto for this coming year. I would do anything.
No, definitely. Panto's a big thing, especially for a lot of regional theatres. Especially like the West End isn't a massive. Obviously, there was the one at the London Palladium, but that'll survive.
West End sets the tone for the rest of the country, particularly because so many of the pantos are controlled by that one organisation.
Yeah,
and so that Palladium production is very, very important. I'm worried that the Palladium might be taken over by Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella by that stage.
No, Cinderella's gone into the New London. No, sorry, Gillian Linus it's called now.
Oh, right, really?
Yeah, it's gone into the Gillian Linus. It's not gone into that Palladium.
Okay. Well, there we are. Cinderella is an entirely new score. It's not the Rodgers and Hammerstein revamp.
No, it's a completely Angela Webber's rewriting it.
Yeah, there we are. Well, I thought somebody asked me the other day what was my favourite Lloyd Webber, and I thought, you know, that's like a nail in the coffin. And I thought of the misery of going to see Love Changes Everything. What's that from? It was
Aspects of Love.
Aspects of Love. The same song again and again and again. Michael Ball on a really bad day. But then I saw what's the sequel of Phantom?
Love Never Dies.
Love Never Dies, and I thought, Andrew Lloyd Webber, you are an angel, you are brilliant, and nobody really picked it up. And
no, it wasn't as success that everybody thought it was going to be.
I think it's one of the great musicals of the last 30 years. It's up there with Joseph. Joseph is superb. And Love Never Dies is superb. Phantom has got some great moments, but most of it's padding. And I'm afraid, and actually, Aspects of Love has got one or two really sensational moments in it. But my God, do you have it's worse than looking at some very badly done Wagner. And I don't understand why the Princess of Wales enjoyed it so much. But there we are. Some people like strange things.
Some people like things. That's why we're all different, Tim. We're all different. That's what makes us human.
Lloyd Webber, in my mind, is completely vindicated by Love Never Dies. And he can do no wrong to me now. Also, I quite enjoyed his revamp of Wizard of Oz. You see, once I'm on a roll, I'm anybody's. And I have my little prejudices, but they don't last very long, and they just need chipping away at.
Because he also, obviously, not many people know. Obviously, well, a lot of people know, but not many people remember. Is School of Rock. Obviously, that's an School of Rock.
Yeah, I saw
Andrew Lloyd Webber as well.
I saw that, and yeah.
Okay. Your face did it all there, Tim.
No, I loved it, darling. Loved it. Any part for me? There were some great moments there too.
Yeah.
I think
the fact that kids play their own instruments.
I needed more of an education before I got to that one.
Well, we'll move on to the.
I found Matilda first time round a bit difficult to take, actually. By the way.
I can understand that. Yes, I can understand that. Yeah.
I felt so nasty, particularly as I knew one of the Matildas. And I just thought, oh God, I'm such a shit. But
I can understand. The first time around, it is kind of hard to take, but it's a classic now, because that's it now, been running for 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely up there with the classics. But moving on, we'll go on to the not so quick fire round.
Okay.
It's just some questions. We've changed them slightly because you're not known as a performer. We usually ask dream roles and things, but we've changed them slightly to fit into you.
Okay.
And the first question in this is, what is your dream show to be in? So that can be anything, whether it be TV, film, stage, any show.
Anything really. Let's say Mary Poppins, I think.
That's a good one, yes. So what, theatre-wise, or have you seen the new Prince Edward?
Absolutely, theatre-wise, yeah.
Yeah, so have you seen the one at Prince Edward?
I have, and it's slightly changed, and it's very good. I was there at the premiere of the original. And I think the new version is greatly improved. And also I adore Thingamy, Charlie Stamp.
I love Charlie Stamp.
I just think he's superb, and he was so wonderful in
Half Sixpence,
which I love as a concept anyway. I remember seeing Tommy Steele in the Palladium in Panto.
Right.
So that takes him back a bit, doesn't it?
Yes, I don't remember.
With the microphone coming up through the stage.
Right.
Which is really the only thing I remember, and the size of the orchestra. But I was very small.
Yes, the Palladium pantomimes were a few years before me. I remember them all now, the last 4 that they've done. But that's only because it's the last 4 years.
I remember the revival of the Palladium pantomime, which I went to see with Babes in the Wood. And I think it was John Inman playing the Dame.
Right.
And the costumes were spectacular.
Yeah, I think they do go above and beyond for the Palladium pantomime.
I'm not a fan of that particular panto story. I think it's a bit of a downer, but I mean, he threw himself into it. It was a great show.
Yeah.
And that was round about the same time as it was a piece which was then rescued by Topol. Brother, can you spare a dime? Ziegfeld.
All right, yes.
Yeah, great show. Great show. Disaster, but great show.
Yeah, there's quite a few disasters in West End of Broadway history, that's definite.
No, I was in the theatre for Bernadette, the People's Musical.
All right.
Look that one up.
Yes, no, I know of it.
I don't think it even lasted the week.
I do my research on musicals, so I know of it. I obviously don't remember it. But
I was there. I think that's quite an achievement.
yeah. So, what's your favourite musical theatre song?
Probably from one of the numbers from La Cage aux Folles. Maybe La Cage aux Folles itself.
Oh,
we
that's so nice.
live on an angle.
That's a great musical
it's not a great sing. It's really a talk your way through it with a very good chorus behind you. But it's a great piece.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a good piece, definitely. And the last question of the night, we've got one thing after that, but the last question is, what is your top 5 shows? So musicals or operas or anything on stage.
Oh my goodness. Mary Poppins, Le Conte d'Hoffmann, Jonathan Miller's Mikado, Le Conte d'Hoffmann, really, wherever it is, I just don't care. I would go to it anywhere. I've got various productions in my mind. I've got 1 or 2 on paper. No one has ever managed to do it properly. I think I would love to take over ENO or the Royal Opera House and just do it properly. And I think it needs puppets and a lot, and it needs a double chorus and a huge orchestra and an organ. What else? So I've got 3 so far.
Got 3, yeah.
And I ought to say something else that I haven't said so far. I have no. Oh, King Lear. I mean, I think who's King Lear? Would I say? Well, the Scottish play with Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, I think, was spectacular. I was there for that, I remember taking my partner to the revamped Stratford, and we saw Merchant of Venice and Midsummer Night's Dream, and I thought a really good production of Midsummer Night's Dream is well worthwhile.
I've seen them recently.
Maybe something about Sondheim. I loved The Company at the Donmar Warehouse years ago now. That was spectacular.
Did you see, talking about Sondheim and Company, did you see the latest rendition?
I haven't seen that yet.
The gender switch one, that was fantastic.
Yeah, didn't see it. Didn't see it. I caught one on YouTube the other day, which I thought was very good. I just think Company is very good. It's very well written show.
Yeah, no, it's Sondheim's fantastic. Like,
I will never quite forget Into the Woods, and then I got 1 or 2 shows which I'm involved with. I mean, there was a show called Kiss of the Spider Woman, which I did the front cover for. There was a show called When She Danced, which is in sort of 6 languages, about Isadora Duncan and her relationship with Sergei Yesenin. And when I lived in Moscow, I lived in Sergei Yesenin's house. So I walk out of my house, and there on the wall is a big plaque. Sergei Yesenin, the poet, lived here.
Love your accent.
And of course, it doesn't say, and he was gay. Russia isn't very kind to that concept. So I feel, if I'm not wearing a big scarf, then I'm living in Sergei Yesenin's house. I feel a sort of alliance with Isadora. So I suppose that would. So I've got about 8, haven't I? I'm so sorry.
Well, that's not a problem. Don't worry.
Vanessa Redgrave. I remember Vanessa Redgrave doing the London premiere of that, but I remember it started off in the King's Head. I remember going to that because, as I say, I'd done the front cover when the play was published, and I've always been very very protective of that play. And also, I think when I was in Oxford, or shortly after I left Oxford, I was still around. Millie Fox did it, and I think
yes,
and designed it, and I did the poster, and again I thought, this is great because I feel very protective of this show, and I think I remember calling up the producer and saying, what are the rights and what's the right situation for that, and it's great because it's a play where Sianin never speaks English, and he has long speeches in Russian, and we sit there in the audience thinking, yes, I understand, and it's
no idea.
Brilliant writing by Martin Sherman, the man who wrote Bent, and it just superb to be able to write in a language no one understands. That is a gift.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Definitely.
Anyway, that brings us to the end. The last thing before we leave you, Tim, is have you heard of the Ice Bucket Challenge?
I have, and I avoided it, and I'm not going to do it for you.
You're not going to do it, don't worry. We're not going to ask you to do it, don't worry. We're not going to ask you to do it. The reason we mention it is because when people did it years ago, they did it and then they nominated somebody.
Absolutely.
So what we've come up with is the West End Talks nomination.
Oh.
So what we're going to get you to do on camera is nominate somebody to do a chat after this. So it can be as many as you want.
Exactly as I've just done.
Yes, exactly you just done. It can be anyone you want that you want to nominate. It can be as many as you want. Obviously, minimum one, because anything less than that is not worth doing. So anyone from theatre, film, or TV, preferably somebody you know, because the point is to help us get them in to do a talk. So who would you like to nominate?
Well, the top of the list, obviously, would be Woody, wouldn't it? And if you go live before I see him, I'll tell him that we've had this conversation. Otherwise, who else would I be interested in? Gosh, I really don't know actually offhand.
It doesn't matter. One's fine. Woody would be fine.
Dan Stevens, but I don't know him. I think we have an Instagram link. I don't know. The great fellow who played Tommy in Dr. Dolittle. I think he's a good idea. Tommy Stubbins.
I'm terrible with names, but we'll find that one out and we'll look into it.
I can put you in touch with him.
Yes, that's great. So that's brilliant. So that's us.
Charlie Stemp.
Who, sorry?
Charlie Stemp.
That would be fantastic to get him in as well. So if you could get in touch with all those.
I can't get in touch with Charlie Stemp. I've got a nice drawing to it.
Well, what you could do is you could tag him in Twitter. If you go onto Twitter and put up a tweet to say you've just done your talk with West End Talks and tag whoever you want and out of those four.
Well, I just think that he is such a rising star.
Yeah.
And he has such extraordinary talent.
Yeah.
And he works so hard. And I was really impressed with him on Half a Sixpence.
Oh, it was fantastic. Like, come as a nobody.
Then he went straight from there into the pantomime, and then I caught him in on Broadway in Hello Dolly, and he was.
Oh, you saw him.
There you are. You see, he was spectacular. And then I missed Bette Midler, but I got Bernadette Peters, who is
a classic.
Who is wonderful. I mean, and actually, some of her movements were sort of clearer than I think they would have been. She was doing the same business as Bette Midler. But sometimes you see things and you think, wow, that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And then he went straight from that, really, into
Mary Poppins.
Yeah,
Mary Poppins, which is obviously now off till next year, but
he just one after the other, and they're all different roles. and I think he's incredibly versatile and he comes across very affably on stage.
Definitely, without a doubt. Well, that's us, Tim. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. All that's left for you guys at home to remember is the charity. Obviously, we're not just here for fun, me and Tim, although I'm hoping you did have fun. But we're not just here for fun. We're here to remember we're here for Acting for Others, who help all year round the full acting community. Not just at the moment, but obviously more so at the moment because theatres are in darkness, and they're needing that extra bit of help, but they do help all year round as well. And join us next time when we'll have Alexandra Silber, sorry, apologies, we're going to try that one again. And join us next time when we'll have Alexandra Silber, who is a Broadway legend. She's been in Fiddler on the Roof, both in the UK and Broadway, and she's done lots more. So I'm delighted for her to join us then. But Tim, once again, thank you very much for joining.
It's been a joy. Look, Bay is nestled by my lap. He's very comfortable. It's like being back.
Thank you for joining, Bay. You are the star of the show in the circle. Thank you very much, Bay, for joining us. But to both of you, thank you very much. And guys, take care. Bye now.
Thank you.
At La Cage au Fall. It's slightly 40s and a little bit new wave. You may be dancing with a girl who needs a shave.